Joe, you visited 150 film locations all over the United States. How long did that take you? And tell us about it.
Well, I mean, honestly, it only took, it's been in the last 9 years that I've been to all these locations. But really, I should have started a lot sooner. It started about 20 years ago. I said one day I want to go to the filming location, the Night of the Living Dead. And someday I'm going to go to the Michael Myers house. And someday turned into 1 week to 2 weeks to 2 months to 2 years, 20 years. And then one morning I woke up and I went, whoa, 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 it's someday. And that morning, I kid you not, I grabbed a bunch of props, ran out to 5 different locations, and I was hooked.
Nice. And today you brought some pictures with you, so we're going to kind of focus on Stephen King today. Tell us about this first picture.
Well, the first picture is we got to start, since we're talking about Stephen King, we got to start with Stephen King's actual house in Bangor, Maine. He loves having visitors come up to the gate, take their pictures. I went with my friend Celeste, who suggested that I get a red balloon like this little Stephen King guy here. We took our pictures in front of there, had a total blast. Actually very cool. It's averaged every 20 minutes there's somebody standing in front of his house taking a picture. And that's not including the tour buses that pass by.
Okay. So tour buses as well.
There's tour buses and everything. He actually, from what I heard, he doesn't really live there anymore. Yeah. But it's such an iconic house. The as you can see, the gate is a giant spider web. It looks like something right out of his books. It's incredible. It was very beautiful to see.
Okay.
Stephen King himself, I know he does a lot for the community. He even coached his son's Little League club, baseball club. I mean, he's done so much for the community out there, and people love him out there.
Nice. Okay, so that leads us to picture number 2. What are we going to look at this time?
Hermosa Beach, California, and that is the gym where CARRIE went to prom at. And the cool thing about this story is that was one of my 5 locations I hit on my very first day. And without thinking, I mean, I was in and out of the house so quick when I realized I finally was going to look at all these film locations. Within 20 minutes, I threw together a bunch of props. I put on this T-shirt, which I have worn at every location I've been to. This is the bucket of blood that I made for my visit out to CARRIE's gym. What I was surprised was school was going on, and they let me walk in, and this thing was filled.
So this was a BYOP, bring your own prop.
Yeah, I bring a, because here's my philosophy. Anybody can go to one of these locations and stand in front of the place, and it's not going to mean anything. You need a prop. You need something that's going to make that picture pop. You're going to need something that's going to connect you to the film. And the other thing is I always wear this shirt so that as I started posting picture after picture after picture, people, oh, there's the pumpkin shirt guy. Yeah. But the prop literally had fake blood in it. It was watered down. I walked into the school, taking all the pictures, and then I realized the bell was about to ring.
No, wait. I did something. Okay, hold on a second. You walk into a school with a bucket full of what looks like blood.
Yeah, I walked into school with this filled with fake blood. The bell is about to ring, so I'm running down the hall like this, and the blood is coming out. The blood was coming out everywhere, and I turned behind me, and I just saw the hallway was just covered in blood, and the bell rang the second I got out of the door, realizing the students walked into a blood-soaked hallway it's the most embarrassing thing I've ever done where I felt really bad, but there's no way I could have explained myself over what just happened.
So what would be
one of the reasons I'm hooked on film on locations though, because I had a good laugh after I was done, but then I cried really hard afterwards because just up the road is Carrie White's house and it's leveled. It's a parking lot. It's very sad. I mean, that's why people need to not, if you want to do something like this, don't wait because you're not guaranteed that these locations are going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah. You know, Hollywood has built so many gigantic sound stages full of scenery from very iconic films. And at the end of these movie shoots, a crew comes in with hammers, they whack it all apart, and they all go into dumpsters. And it's a real shame that somebody doesn't have a warehouse full of sets that could have somehow been transferred there. I know they're huge and colossal, and they're not made to be disassembled and moved to a different location because unlike television sets where you have flats, which are walls that are moved around very easily, they're screw gunned in and moved around. These bigger sets from these iconic movies they're not made that way. They're made for one-time use. Shoot the movie for 6 months or whatever it takes, and then they're gone forever.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you something. When David Letterman ended his show, somebody went dumpster diving and put it on YouTube somewhere. And I was shocked at how much of his set was just thrown in the dumpster with 2 days after him shutting his show down. I was just, it's amazing what people just throw away. I know even the Disney animators, when, who used to do hand-painted cell animation, when they got bored, they would pull out old cells, run across the room, jump on the cell, which is a cell is a plastic sheet that they would paint each picture from the movie on, jump on that cell and slide across the room, ruining the cell, but have a great ride.
Oh.
Yeah, wasted.
So you went from the gym to where did you go next? Or what have you seen next?
I'm kind of like all over the place with this one. This is an interesting one. We're over to Santa Rosa, California, which is not that far from San Francisco. For years, I've been looking for the CUJO house. And I started hearing rumors that it was torn down. The houses were no longer available. I went to a convention where I met Dee Wallace, who played the lead in the movie. She also is the mom from E.T. There, Dee told me exactly where the house was. And so I grabbed a dog bone, ran to the house, and was taking some took the pictures in front of the house, not realizing there were two big, huge dogs on the other side of the house who started banging up against the door I was standing against, freaking me out, and I ran away.
So you thought the house was
I was able, like,
you thought the house was torn down.
I was able to meet up with Dee Wallace again and thank her, and she was so surprised that I actually listened to her, and yeah, that was pretty cool.
So you actually thought the house was torn down? As people in the industry or people in the neighborhoods in the community, they said
people in the neighborhood, the communities told me that it was being torn down for a park.
Oh, so
and Dee was like, no, it's still there.
I see. Well, and did you throw the dogs a bone?
No, I kept the bone. It's somewhere in my house right now. I should have had it here with all my other stuff. But yeah, I have a little piece of every place I've been to, or at least I have something. I don't, whether it's a sticker or, I never take anything from the property. There's a couple of rules I follow. If there's no trespassing, I don't go there.
Mhm.
If it doesn't belong to me, I don't take it. There are just a few little exceptions with that one. If something's about ready to be torn down, which we're going to talk about in just a minute here, there you just don't take property.
Yeah, and most of
You
all,
don't go to
just be
property
respectful.
after dark.
Yeah.
Why do you need to be lurking around someone else's place? If you can, get permission before you go to some of these places.
Mhm.
They appreciate it. So,
Okay. Next photo. What do you got for us?
let me see. Um, One of my favorite photos I've taken because of what this movie means to me, um, and it's Creepshow, and it's in, out of all places, Monroeville, Pennsylvania, which is, if you're a horror fan, you know that Monroeville is really famous for the mall of Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead movie.
Mm-hmm.
But just down the road from the mall is Creepshow, is Billy's house from the opening of Creepshow. It's about one of the few locations you can actually go visit. Most of it was done and filmed in an old school on pre-made sets. But as you can see, I have the creeper over here. And Jeff, I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, I owned that for a long time too, I think.
Yeah, well, because you and I got this on the same day.
Did we?
We went to a costume contest for the opening of Creepshow, and the winners, the top 12 winners, got these. And then our friend Tim and the guy who dressed up as Jack from American Werewolf in London took first place, and they got all of Stephen King's books that were at that time available. On top of this,
I remember that was a great promotion. I think they had something like 12 screens in that cinema.
Yeah.
I remember that night very vividly. I remember talking to somebody. This is we're still in high school at this point. This is before I went out to Hollywood. I remember talking to the American Werewolf in London guy and asking him how he got such realistic deteriorations on his skin, and he said, "Well, I use this colloidal material, and it was like in a combination of gel." And I said, "You mean like gel? Like you make Jello?" He says, "Yeah." So right away, I was like, I've always loved, movie magic tricks like that, and so that was kind of cool to see that he had figured that out.
I just remember everyone's reaction as he was walking through the theater. They were repulsed, but really intrigued at the same time. And he was the nicest guy. And then our friend Tim, I don't know if you remember his costume. He was the Invisible Man, and he had rigged it so the hat was like floating by itself on top of his head. It sounds like something Tim would do.
Yeah.
But yeah, but that's the main reason why I go film location hunting. It's not because I love horror films. I love the memories that these films bring back, and all these memories have to deal with my childhood. Who was with me when I saw these movies? What was I going through as I was seeing these movies?
And we grew up at a
Did
time.
I sneak into the drive-in when I went to these movies?
Yeah.
By hiding in the trunk. I just have so many good memories of. We were very fortunate growing up when we did.
Well, we grew up in a period of time where the world was still very naive. I mean, the world had gone through world wars and things like that. But in our generation, it was the 80s. We had a lot of fun, and I had no consciousness of greater evil things going on in the world like we do today.
No.
And I think that's just how the 80s was. It was a fun time. People were not thinking about mass murders and all the real life serial killers and those things that have been going on. It was just a better time to enjoy life and have fun watching horror movies like that. Today, it's a much different world.
Yeah.
People are a lot more informed, and we see real life atrocities like what happened on October 7th in Israel. We've got 1,200 people that are just babies raped and machine gunned, and women and sisters and daughters hauled off to be in prisons. I mean, we didn't have any of that kind of thing going on at that time that we were aware of. It wasn't public knowledge and news. So today, it's different. But we did have fun then. From that showcase,
you know what? I think you brought up a really interesting point. Is maybe with all the horrific things that are going on in our world today, by me waiting until 9 years ago when I started revisiting, it's me trying to regain that feeling I had when things were simpler, when things were not as terrifying. It's interesting. I'm seeing the horror films. I'm going to horror film locations so I don't get terrified. Interesting. Never even thought of that before.
Yeah, much different times. Just on the back of that story, I took some of those techniques from that guy, from the American Werewolf guy, and with Halloween, I think this was out at Halloween time. I tried the the effects myself. So I went to Goodwill. I found a jacket. I shredded it as though a werewolf had attacked me. I tried my best to do some scar tissue across my face, and a little bit of blood, which is blood is usually Karo syrup and red food dye number 5. And I showed up at my girlfriend's house, and I can still remember her expression, and it's like, oh my God, and like. This was the first time I met her parents, so this is how I got introduced to them as well.
Oh no.
All right, so next picture up.
Well, a lot of people don't know this movie. It's called Rose Red. It actually was filmed in a castle in Oregon. Where'd it go? Yeah, it was filmed in a Thornwood Castle. Very cool because I love the movie. It's one of the best haunted house movies ever made, in my opinion. And when I rented the place out, I didn't realize I and my friend and 2 other people were the only people who were going to be at the castle. Everybody left the property, and we had the entire castle to ourselves.
Wow.
It was amazing. I mean, you have the rose garden out back with a huge pond, where in the movies, this ghost woman comes out and grabs someone and drags them underneath. And so your imagination kind of went wild in this place. The room I stayed in was called the Rose Red Suite, which is an area where a lot of things happened in the movie. Just a great experience. That was a fantastic experience.
What year do you suppose that was built?
I don't know. Yeah, I should have the dates on there, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
A lot of it was sent over from England brick by brick.
Wow.
Okay. We got to talk about The Shining. Probably my favorite book of Stephen King's. A lot of The Shining was filmed on a soundstage because Kubrick doesn't like to work in real locations. But what he did do is he copied a hotel out here in California piece by piece and shot it out in England. But the exterior shots were filmed on Mount Hood in Oregon at the Timberline Lodge. So the picture with me wielding the axe, that's me at the Timberline. Now, where Stephen King wrote the book, and got the idea of The Shining is one night he and his wife were um, in Colorado, and they stayed the night at this at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, and they were the only people there. And Stephen King's imagination ran wild, and they wound up filming the miniseries there. And it's an incredible, it's a beautiful hotel. If you ever get a chance to see it, it's phenomenal. It's touted as being the most haunted hotel in the United States.
Joe, there's this story. So I lived in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles most of my life. And repeatedly, I kept hearing this story about this hotel that had burned down. It didn't exist anymore. It was up in Sierra Madre Mountains, I think, or along that mountain range at least. And, I was a hiker. I like to climb up the mountains and follow the streams of water uphill and all. And repeatedly, hikers will come down from this one place, and they'll talk about how nice this hotel was up there, and how pristine and beautiful it was, and just it's out in the middle of nowhere, up in this mountain. And then people explain to them it burned down like a long, long time ago.
I've never heard this.
You never heard that story?
Cool. No.
Maybe we'll have to research this, and maybe this will be your next location. We'll send you out with a canteen of water and a couple snack bars, and see if you come back.
I mean, I've never, up until when I just recently went to this location for my birthday, and prior to that, I only had one experience that we can talk about on another date. But
good teaser.
When I went to this location, I had 3 different experiences that I'm not a big paranormal. Oh my gosh, I feel cold. I'm not that type of person. But when I went there, I had 3 experiences I can't explain. One was a picture. We were taking a tour in the tunnels underneath the hotel, and we were told to randomly take pictures. And one of the pictures, a face showed up, and it creeped me out so much. I went back to the tour guide after. I said, "Look at this." She and I went back, turned on all the lights. We couldn't find any place that could have reflected off of. There was no way we could explain it. Yeah. At the time it was cool, but then you think back, it's kind of a creepy looking face.
We have a mutual friend that I think we both lost contact with him now, but his name was Brian.
Yeah.
And he was in Krakow, I think it was, and he was visiting a prison. And this is a guy that is a skeptic about everything, and there's no way you're going to convince him differently. But he was in like an area where there was torture or something going on, and he felt the presence in there, and that made a big impression on him when he got out of there.
Yeah. No, when people talk about stuff like that, I go, yep, I believe that stuff. One of the other things that happened to me in the hotel was I was in this room, and there was this huge closet, and at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, the door to the closet would and open and close, open and close. And at 3 o'clock, the door opened. It was right on the hour. The door opened, and in the background, Jeff, I heard, I kid you not. I went, "Lord Jesus, I'm so tired. You take care of this one." And I'm too scared. And I rolled over and went to bed. But I would wake up every hour to the door.
Which house was this?
No, this is at the This is out in Colorado
Uh,
at the Stanley Hotel.
uh.
There's the place. I honestly believe, I'll tell people, I don't care if I sound like a kook, that place is haunted.
Hmm.
That place is haunted. So, I've been to Hancock, Maine, where they filmed Pet Cemetery. I've been to
And Joe,
this.
when you're referring to all these movies, I assume you're referring to the originals, not or like the '80s movies, '80s '90s movies, not modern day remakes that have come along. Is that right?
I'm referring to the classics.
Okay.
The classics. Bernie, California is where was the Stand By Me bridge. They're getting ready to tear it down.
Mm-hmm.
That's the famous bridge where the boys are going across and one of them yells, "Train!" The tracks have already been ripped up with plans on actually demolishing the bridge because there's too many people like myself who go there and want to get their picture taken in front of it.
Yeah, God forbid that should be happening where we actually appreciate some of our heritage in movies. Yeah, can't have that happening.
But for safety reasons, they need to take the bridge down. I can't believe I'm saying this because I was crossing the bridge. I kid you not. I was crossing the bridge. My foot went through, and I dropped the comb that I was using as my prop. And like in the movie, he drops his comb, and it fell right through the train tracks, just like it did in the movie. I was like, "You got to be kidding!" I didn't get any of that on film. So you just see me standing in front of the, standing in that picture like that. Christine, the car is now sitting. I guess there's 3 cars that are across the United States. I know there's one out by Chicago. The one that's out here is at a place called the Peterson Auto Museum.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Christine is there. But the last location I want to talk about is in Ferndale, California, and that is where the original Salem's Lot was filmed.
Mm-hmm.
I was not expecting to enjoy this place as much as I did. One, the people are extremely nice that live there. Mm-hmm. 2, you feel like you walk right into the movie. If you've seen it as many times as I have, it just, there's Mr. Barlow's shop. Oh, there's where Ben rented out his room. And the only house that's not there is the old mansion. That was a pre-built house over another house. But I walked around, put my little vampire mask on, put my little cape on with this, and I had a blast. Some of the best food I've ever had in my life was there. I mean, but then 2 months later, I had the opportunity to meet Lance Kerwin, who played Mark, the little boy, the boy Mark that lives at the end of the movie. I hope I didn't spoil that for anybody. Mark wound up becoming a pastor for Calvary Chapel.
Oh. You mean Lance Kerwin did, or who?
Yeah.
Lance?
Yeah.
Okay. I've never heard that.
Yeah. He lived out in Hawaii for some time, but he had his own personal things that he was dealing with in his life. Mm-hmm. But we met up at a horror convention, and for an hour, instead of talking about horror, we talked about Jesus. Mm-hmm. That was amazing. I felt like I walked out of the best retreat I had been to in years after leaving the convention.
Well, this is a theme I kind of wanted to touch on here a little bit. Now, your brother, who works in the film industry, and he's actually very famous, and maybe we'll do a show on him at some point. At one point in his career, before he changed careers within the movie industry, he was very much involved in doing horror makeup. And I remember him specifically telling me at one time he was wrestling with the notion of being involved in doing horror films, horror makeup and things like that. And one of the wisest statements I ever heard was when he was sharing this with his pastor. The pastor came back to him and said, "All right, so what happens when you're doing makeup?" And he said, "Well, typically we're going to do a face cast of somebody. We're putting plaster bandages and making a mold of their face." And so the pastor's like, "Well, okay, well they're probably in the chair for hours. Then is it set?" So he goes, "Yeah, that's about right." And so the pastor says, "Well, you've got pretty much a captive audience then, don't you?" He says, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, it's a good time to talk to them about Yeshua, Christ, huh?"
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Lance and I actually talked a little bit afterwards. We would text each other, and we had made uh, we had made up our minds we were going to meet at Newport Beach out here in California, because that's where he lived. And I tried reaching him. A couple of days went by, a couple of weeks went by, and then I find out that he passed away.
Oh my gosh.
He suddenly died, and I don't know the details or anything like that. My heart was broken, because he was going to. Our plan was to go to church together.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to go to one of the churches out there, out in that area. The one thing that what he was doing, one of the things he did at the convention, you're going to laugh at this. He was making these, and if you remember in the movie Salem's Lot, they were taping up medical sticks. They were a little bigger than this.
Tongue depressors, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so this means the world to me. Very sad. Very sad.
It's wonderful. I mean, there's so many child actors that came out of TV series and specifically more so like TV series. Lance did a TV series called James at 16 that ran for a long time. But so many of these actors are just destroyed. I mean, there's so many pressures. Pressures is one level of complications for a kid to be in film industry, in the TV movie industry. You don't have a regular life. You're not going to a regular school. You're not developing friendships like you would normally have. And a lot of them later on just wrestled with drugs and depression and drinking. And I've met a few of those kids along the way, and some of them have killed themselves. And there's a whole nother level beyond just the pressure of just pedophilia and things that is going on in the movie industry. So when I hear stories like Lance's story, that where Christ redeems him from the situation that he's been through, that's a victory. And you know that Lance had a big old smile on his face when he's meeting Christ and everybody else.
Oh yeah. I've thought about that a lot. And I've been thanking the Lord for having an opportunity to meet him and fellowship with him. That's priceless.
Yeah, and along the way, I was using the illustration of your brother earlier. You've had opportunities to connect with people that maybe nobody else connected with them, but simply because you have this genre of films that you have an interest in, you have a common ground to talk to people about faith and how God really loves his children and wants to connect with them.
Well, if you on my Facebook page and my bio, I'm a film historian that loves Jesus and loves horror. That opens the door to so many people that I can share my faith with. And it's happened so many times, Jeff. It's I can see how God is using this. And I know there's some Christians who go, how's God using horror? Like, no. Look at what just happened with Lance Kerwin. And I have so many different stories where I can watch God work in a situation. That's the only way you can discern. The only way I can describe it is the Holy Spirit at work and what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I will not watch a lot of the newer horror stuff you talked about. We're talking about the classic stuff.
Yeah.
I don't watch Slaw. I don't watch these movies that are just trying to outgore or are just too dark. The movies aren't fun. There's a movie called Hereditary that I tried watching, and I got 3 minutes in. And I went, nope, I don't want to fill my spirit with this.
Yeah, there are some movies that hit it too close to reality.
Rosemary's Baby. We're talking about classics, but I can't sit through that.
Yeah.
If there's anything that's going to openly glorify Satan, I won't watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why do I want to invite that into my soul?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and there's a movie we'll come back and talk about at a different time regarding that. But as we can, in the final segment here, I kind of want to talk about just Stephen King in general. Now, all the pictures that you had today in all these locations, these were kind of different stories than got produced later on as TV series. And one of the things that I've noticed in the TV series is Stephen King has a profound understanding of how both good and evil work in a way that is very biblically based, actually. Just how evil characters, let's say in The Last Stand, for instance. Last Stand, is that right? Do I have the right title?
Or just The Stand?
I'm sorry, The Stand, yeah. So The Stand, for instance, a classic story of God's people coming together in one location, and then the devil using his trickery, his deception, his false accusation to shame people into false guilt, and using all these different techniques, all these strategies that the devil uses to try to come against God's people and destroy them. And these are a particular theme. I mean, I'm in my head. I can't remember the titles of them, but I'm thinking of a bunch of different TV series, Stephen King's TV series that came out that do this, that very accurately depict this. Yet, this is a mystery in Stephen King's own life, in our the world outside of the movie world, in the real world. These things he doesn't seem to see and understand for some reason. What do you think about that?
I'll even go one step further. One thing that angers me about Stephen King is every priest, every pastor that he puts in his movies is either evil or weak.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I don't like that type of depiction.
Well, I mean, I'll part company with you on that one, because more often than not in today's church, I've seen nothing but weak pastors in church after church after church that are candy coating everything now, that are tickling people's ears, that they're not telling the truth anymore. Many of them are caught up in all kinds of truly just evil things. I mean, even things that we've elevated as Christianity, like Hillsong, the Hillsong music people, they've got dark things that are going on in their leadership there. So the way I come back at this is, well, listen, the devil's been around forever. He's had thousands of years to go inside the church and try to turn people. He doesn't have to worry about anybody else, okay? They're already on the highway to hell anyways, okay? So getting in there and weaving dissension against each other, whispering in their ears, introducing the doctrines of demons, as the Bible talks about, and having us chasing after traditions of men and things like that. Those are real things. Those are things that are happening that we need to be very aware of. But for Stephen King, what do you think? Why is he unable to see these things when he understands so well in story form, but he can't understand in real life.
I just think, again, he is so wrapped up in the world and his own successes that it's blinding him that he can't see that the Lord is the one who's doing all these successes in his life, who is giving him these gifts. But the world is twisting around look at what I am doing, instead of looking at what God is doing. And I don't it's very deceitful. I mean, I pray before I go to every one of these film locations. I bathe myself in prayer and asking the Lord to keep me wise, and asking the Lord to keep me humble, asking the Lord to keep me diligent. And if it's too dark, I've gone to a couple of locations where I've just walked away going, no, it's not worth it. Mm-hmm. You got to be really careful. I mean, there's a thin line between what I'm doing.
Yeah,
make sure that your heart is right with the Lord, and that you and your walk's got to come first.
I remember as a kid, my parents took me on a road trip somewhere or another, and we went through Salem, where the Salem witch trials were. As a kid, I felt it. And if actually, as a kid, I was actually up through my college years. I was very sensitive to supernatural things going on. I had a sense, a real strong sense, and now I think the devil just runs when he sees me coming, because my faith has gotten a lot stronger, and I don't put up with the devil's bullshit at all. I call him out for it. But here, here's what I think is going on with.
I had a similar situation in Salem.
Did you really?
Yeah, no. I was there. I was going to stay there 2 days, and I had checked into my hotel, and by 3:00 in the morning, I just crawling out of my skin, and I was like, "That's it, we're going. I don't want to be here anymore." And I got out, and I couldn't explain it. I just knew there was something not right in my soul, and I kept, I didn't need to be around that area. That place is dark.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like the devil plants his flag and says, "Okay, I won this battle here. Look what I did." And the president stays there. He leaves behind some lieutenants and some foot soldiers, and takes advantage of that. And some of you out there might be listening to this and think that we're crazy. We're not crazy. Okay, we've experienced things. But regarding Stephen King, I believe that even with people of faith, like there's a talk show host I listen to, I really like, a conservative Jewish man that just can't. He's been blind to who Yeshua is, who Christ is, his whole life. And there's been a lot of people in the entertainment industry lately that have suddenly had their eyes open, that started out earlier in their careers, were scoffing at God, scoffing at Christ, and one of them in case, for instance, is we're hearing Joe Rogan has majorly changed his tune on Christ. He used to mock him in stand-up routines. Russell Brand out of England, he was just baptized 2 weeks ago. And basically, I mean, you should go listen to his testimony about this. It's fascinating because he comes to the conclusion we all are going to come to, is that, listen, we can chase after all these pleasures in our life and luxuries and just chasing all kinds of things that lead nowhere. Even in the Bible, King Solomon, he talks about all these things that he chased after, and he had tremendous gardens and castles, and had just huge harems of, I think it was thousands of women. And at the end of the day, he said it's all in vain, all in vain. So I am thinking this is what's going to happen with Stephen King. And think of that day. Think of all the Stephen King followers that are going to be left with no choice but to examine it themselves. When their idol, and there's a lot of people that are just, so Stephen King's the man.
We had a similar situation with Anne Rice, the writer of Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah? What's that?
She became a Christian, and her followers are like, "Whoa, wait a minute! What are you doing? What are we doing now?" And it really threw people for a loop.
Wow.
When she came out and said that she was a born-again Christian.
Wow.
And the stuff that's written in those books are not Christian at all.
Wow. I've had my own Stephen King type of experiences. And maybe that's another show to get into, but I'll tease it a bit. Somehow I ended up staying in the house of an ex-high priestess, a witch from England that used to sing, was a backup singer for Elton John. And she had a spirit in her house. I mean, there was a whole group of us that was there, and I had a friend there, and I asked him, is this all BS? Is she imagining all this? And he said, no, he's seen it himself. So anyways, stories for a different time. Man, Joe, before we close out here, are there any stray thoughts that you wanted to get in?
No, I think we've covered with Stephen King, again, a lot of these are just childhood memories. I think about the movie Stand By Me, and it's about 4 boys growing up and the adventures they went on as kids. And Stephen King for me represents, all the Stephen King that I really like are the stuff way back from the 80s, 70s and 80s.
And I think our friend Tim, he saw Alien back in the cinema just recently.
Yeah, I did the same thing here.
Yeah?
Yeah, I liked it so much. I walked out of one movie theater, drove to another movie theater, and saw it back to back twice in a row.
You did.
It just brought back so much. In that case, I was with my brother who had just gotten his driver's license, and we were on the way to the drive-in to watch it, and some lady backed up into him, so I had to wait until one of my quote-unquote video parties I used to have to watch it with all you guys.
Yeah, man, drive-in cinemas, we could do a whole show on that. I mean, that was a big thing. It's been, it's a lost part of culture today. I mean, there's a few remaining drive-ins. Even here in Austin, Texas, they have kind of a pop-up drive-in with an inflatable screen. It's just not the same.
I'm lucky. Where I live, we have 2 drive-ins in my town. Full-on drive-in.
Nice.
That still run, and it's great.
Yeah, I mean, we used to show up, we'd pop up the lawn chairs, we'd sit on the roof, we'd sit on the hood. We'd play Frisbee out in front of the screen ahead of time. It was just, when you grew up in a small town, there's not much to do.
It used to be more than just, and sometimes there would be several of us going in cars. There would be some of us who would sneak in the trunks. There would be, but some of the best times, watching American Werewolf in London and Omen 3 as a double billing at a drive-in at Miracle Twin. Amazing experience.
David, you're hurting my feelings.
David, yeah.
Yeah, American Werewolf had some of the most quotable lines in all of history, but we love it.
That is my destination for next year, Lord willing, that I'm able to get out there, because I do have the exact hiking locations.
Oh, dude, I've talked so many times about walking the moors by the moonlight.
Yeah, I've got the directions from the road to the slaughtered lamb, how to get there.
Nice. Wow.
So I mean that is my number one location that I gotta hit. There's just too many good memories. I mean, we brought up one already, but there's too many good memories revolved around that movie.
Yeah.
You know, that set, when Rick Baker did the makeup for that movie, it set our minds on fire. Because we had never seen anything like that before, and no one's perfected that makeup since that Rick Baker did.
Well, I mean, that's a great thing about. We could talk about a whole show about the '80s too. Is just how the mechanical effects, how the real physical models and articulation. I was involved with that for a little while, pouring latex and making molds, and that stuff is just not the same. No matter how good the computer effects are, it's just not the same as those things.
I am a practical effects junkie. I can't stand CGI.
Yeah, me neither.
No matter what you do, I mean, that's how come I think the last Peter Jackson's King Kong just failed. You know, no one can touch what they did in 1933 King Kong. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can do a whole show on that.
Well, Joe, thank you for joining me today. I hope to do much more of these shows. I know you've got, what's the math there, 152 more locations for us to look at from different movies?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Everyone, you know, it's interesting because I can't, I wish I could share them because the Lord is such a major part in these locations. A lot of these locations that I go to, he's a part of everyone because I bring him into it before I go there. But it's amazing to watch God work in some of these situations.
Well, I want to hear more of those.
And I need to preface this: I do work with a pastor who keeps me accountable, who holds me in prayer as I've been doing these locations. It's not just me randomly going to these places or whatever. I call him, his name's Pastor Pat. And he holds me accountable and just make, you know, because I might say I feel okay, or I think, you know, the Lord's happy with this. No. I need some type of accountability as I do something like this, because if I didn't, it would just be stupid.
Yeah, and hey, people out there, this is no joke about this. I was in a situation where I had some roommates in the house, and there was something very occultish going on in the background of this couple, and they brought something into our house where we all heard footsteps in the middle of the night and doors opening and closing. So, if you're exploring this kind of thing, yeah, there's some real things on it. Don't let it become a situation where you've opened a door for evil to follow you home. You don't want that.
Right. I mean, I have an assistant where I work. Her girlfriends are all taking her in 2 or 3 days to a place called Zach Baggins Haunted Artifacts. And I went, why are you going there? Why would you put yourself in a situation where people are saying if they touch an object, they take something home with them? Why would you invite that into? And she goes, well, I'm bringing holy water, and I'm bringing this and this and this and this and this. And I was like, going, gosh, all you need is Jesus. And one, you shouldn't even, you know, sometimes Jesus tells you to run. And that's a place I won't touch. You know, there's items in this museum that people have touched and just dropped dead. Kind of weird, but yeah, no. People you need to be careful. You don't want to play around with stuff like this.
Especially in a day where the people in Switzerland are trying to open a portal with a super collider. And that's not that's not hyperbole. They openly admit it now.
What?
Yeah, that's that could be a whole other show in itself. But
Okay.
yeah, when you start looking into that whole thing, it's like, okay, you're already communicating with something on the other side. Our most brilliant mind said, "Don't mess around with this," and yet they're trying to open a portal. They openly admit it now. It's not about. Maybe in part, it's about trying to just to split particles. But there's way more to it, and yeah.
You got to be careful in this world because I think that's how come I visit the older locations because I don't trust what Hollywood is putting out today because there's stuff in there that we don't understand.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
Just if you're gonna, again, accountability is so important. Prayer is so important. Listen to what the Holy Spirit is telling you. If you are not comfortable and, don't go. If the Holy Spirit is telling you to stay away, then you stay away. Again, the reason I do this is it brings up memories of my childhood. Innocence. It's not because I'm trying to recreate some horrific scene or something like that. And I won't go to real life murder locations. I've learned that lesson. We'll go in that in another show. You just don't do that. You don't know what you're going to be asking for.
Yeah.
This is my thing. Anyways, I'm rambling.
Joe, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to doing another show together with you very soon.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.